What distinguishes a traumatic from a non-traumatic event? There are several definitions, but there are 4 characteristics to watch for as you examine your life history. If one of these 4 conditions is met, the psyche may encode the memory as a traumatic event. If the event is perceived as a threat to your physical survival, or you have overwhelmed your coping capacity, producing a sense of powerlessness, or you felt isolated and alone in your suffering, and the 4th is your expectations were violated. Some people have the resilience to cope with extreme events, like an assault or beating. Others are traumatized by what might appear to be a minor event. We call extreme events big T traumas and minor events little t traumas. The simple withdrawal of a parent or a caretaker's attention could be a traumatizing event for a small child. Infants have an inbred expectation that they will receive emotional connection from their caretakers, and when this is absent, their expectations are violated. The subtle trauma that comes from an emotional environment that does not meet your most basic needs of being seen, heard, and understood can often be as significant as trauma related to an extreme event. It doesn't matter to our bodies. Big T and little t traumas all induce a fight or flight reaction and cause stress when one or some of the 4 conditions are met. Sometimes when a traumatic event occurs and a child is not able to process it because they don't have the cognitive ability to interpret and make meaning out of the event, the best option a young mind can come up with might be to encapsulate the trauma, putting a barrier around the event and disassociating from it. In EFT, or tapping, we use the phrase trauma capsule to describe this. The unpleasant memory is wrapped in a protective sheath and buried in the subconscious mind or the body. The whole event is encapsulated in this way from the beginning to the end. Putting bad events into a trauma capsule allows the child to cope. Depending on the environment, by the time a child reaches the teenage years, he or she might have formed dozens of these trauma capsules. The collection of traumatic events has shaped his or her worldview and attachment style. When we're dealing with an event like the coronavirus, it can trigger an encapsulated memory, causing the capsule to open up and you to relive all those strong emotions. We use tapping to work through that trauma and speed up our ability to process and reintegrate the emotions related to the events. Tapping on an unprocessed trauma can bring a cognitive shift toward feelings of being at peace, of having moved on, and being safe. When a client feels safe and describes an event in the past tense without emotional charge, with a sense of perspective, perhaps even humor, it's likely that the trauma capsule has been successfully dissolved and its contents processed. After a lifetime spent stuffing bad experiences into our shadow or forming trauma capsules and not truly feeling or processing our negative experiences, a person can develop a reflexive habit of responding to negative experiences this way. Such a person might feel very few of their feelings deeply and perceive emotions as dangerous and disruptive. Their safety lies in dissociating. Some people may have a long history of using dissociation as a coping strategy and have a huge collection of disowned personality fragments stuffed into their shadow. Poet Robert Bly calls it the bag, and he says that we fill our bags with these unhealed experiences during childhood and drag the bag through our adult life like a huge burden that weighs us down and robs us of our joy. Although the person might have managed to feel okay in the past by suppressing these fragments and the associated feelings and might have reported low emotional intensity, they may now be feeling them fully and with high emotional intensity. In this case, a rise in emotional intensity is actually a sign of healing, as long as the emotion is then fully processed to the point at which the intensity subsides and the shadow fragment is reintegrated into the whole personality as an acceptable part. Tapping is an excellent way to help you work through trauma, release the baggage, and find your peace and joy.